Good afternoon. I'm Ross Thomas. I am the Bartholomew County Democratic Chairman. Happy to be your host today for this get-together to talk about, let people know a little bit about the Indiana Rural Summit and hopefully raise a few bucks for the candidates that are involved with the group. For those of you who don't know, the Indiana Rural Summit was formed as a PAC and is a PAC to raise money for rural Indiana candidates in some pretty tough districts. So it came about, Michelle Higgs, who you're going to hear from, really the driving force behind this movement, and has done a tremendous job in organizing. And what people have seen, what I've seen as a former candidate and as a county chairman, not all counties are created equal. So some places, I'd like to think my county, but some might say different. But in some places you have a pretty damn good organization, right? We're here in a place, obviously, that has a tremendous organization here in Monroe County. You can give yourself a round of applause, the envy of the state. But so those candidates who decide, hey, I'm going to run for state legislature, you're going to go to your county chair, you're going to go to your committee, you're going to go to your precinct people, hey, we're going to hit the ground running. We might have a few bucks for you. We got donors for you. We got canvassing lists. We can help you. Some folks might not be able to find the county chair's phone number, and it might be disconnected. Now that's not a knock on anybody. Look, but there are some places that have struggled. They just have. And if you're a candidate in one of those places, try as they might, they simply do not have the organization to do what they need to do to get their candidates off and running. So what Michelle saw, what some other folks saw, is, you know, what if there was a group that could raise money independently of the party to not only support financially, but also create a group atmosphere with these candidates. And that's what happened with the Indiana Rural Summit. Last election cycle, 12 candidates in rural districts covering all or parts of 30 counties in Indiana. And what it does for those candidates, and some of you here have run as a Democrat in parts of Indiana where it's a thankless job. And you kind of know going into that it's going to be a tough road. But what the Indiana Rural Summit has done was to provide some assets and also logistics and really just camaraderie to say, listen, you're going to have a meeting in Greensburg or Versailles or Morgantown. You know what? If you're doing real good, you're going to get 10, 15 people there. And you're doing really good. Now, what if your Rural Summit cohorts can show up and each one of them bring 5 people with them? Well, all of a sudden, the people that might wander up interested, well, this looks like a going affair here, right? This is something going on. This has got energy. This has got, and it really works. It's been terrific, and it's going to be terrific going forward. So the state party has to focus on winnable districts. It has to focus on protecting incumbents. That is what they have to do. But the reality is, for us in Indiana going forward, we have to focus on every single district. We have to have a viable candidate in every district. That is not for show. that is strategically what we need to do for multiple reasons. One reason is, look, a Democrat, a strong Democrat going to the ballot and ready to vote and seeing 3 Democrats on their ballot, if they're lucky, is demoralizing. It's demoralizing to the county party. It's demoralizing to the state party. It's demoralizing to a candidate asking that person to support them. As a county chair, asking somebody to support my candidates. Well, you only have 3. No, I got a full slate, right? And so it's important to have a viable candidate in those places, number one. Number two, statewide races depend on reverse coattails in Indiana. What does that mean? If you are running in Indiana, look, a House candidate may not win in Bartholomew County, where I am. But if you have a viable candidate who's maybe going to work hard and maybe get 5, 7, 10% more, 92 counties with 10% more in each county, that can put a statewide candidate over the top. Those are real numbers and they make a difference. So we're going to hear from, and we're so happy that you all could come. We're going to hear from 2 of our great state legislators today, Carey Hamilton and Matt Pierce, who are here today. We're going to hear from Michelle Higgs, who's going to talk to you about the Rural Summit. And we're going to hear from several of the candidates that ran last time, including Michael Potter, Teresa, Kendall, and Sarah Blessing. So again, I appreciate you all being here. Hopefully, we can leave here energized. We can raise a few dollars and get ready for next year because it's going to be a fight. So without further ado, we can't appreciate enough her joining us here today. She is the caucus chair of the Democrats in the Indiana House of Representatives. She's represented District 87 in Marion County since, I believe, 2016. A great leader, a great Democrat, Carey Hamilton.
Thank you, Ross. Well, it was so great to be with you all. Since I first learned about the formation of the Rural Summit, however long ago that was, 1.5 years, 2 years, almost 2 years, I was so excited. And I want to tell you, as I've gotten to know more about this work and saw things shape up for the last election cycle, and apologies to everyone involved in the Rural Summit for launching leading up to one of the most devastating years for Democrats, right? But I've been so impressed, and so glad to support you all. And I talk about the work of the Rural Summit almost every day in conversations with people who ask me, how are we going to start to flip more seats in Indiana? And I point to you all. So thank you. Thank you for your work. And especially to Trish Whitcomb, who ran such an incredible race, as many of you did. A little bit more about me. So I am a mom, an Army mom, and a wife to this incredible dude, Derek Hamilton, who is a small-town Indiana boy from up north, Frankfort. And my background professionally is, woohoo! And it's a great political spouse, obviously, because he comes along to all these events I drag him to. My background is in the environmental field, and I am the daughter of a single working mom. I was a latchkey kid. It wasn't great. One of the reasons I'm so passionate about early learning and childcare support in our state. And I'm an IU grad. This is one of my favorite towns, as I was just sharing with Skylar and Rogers, and our boys are both here studying right now, so we're going to have dinner with them at Social Cantina after this event. So also I want to shout out to Matt Pierce. You all know him. He's an incredible representative for this area. And poor guy's had to deal with me now for 9 years. But I will say, special kudos to Matt, who has done such a great job on the national news, again and again locally, talking about the ridiculous situation we're in with the prospect of midterm, mid-decade redistricting for Indiana. So let's see here. I've got the unfortunate reality of sharing some really important information with you, and that's what's happened at the State House this last year. As we have been fighting so hard to advance the House Democrats' Working Hoosiers agenda, we've gone backwards in so many areas. And I do want to say that had in 2024 it not been such an epically bad year, and we had secured some of these races with the great candidates you put forward, we would have been able to have more debate, slow down the bad things, make things a little better for Hoosiers. And so that's what we have to keep fighting for. And I think in 2026, we're going to have a real epic opportunity, right? A once-in-a-generation opportunity to do just that. So here I've got to share the talking points for you to take back to your communities when you're talking to your friends, whether they're Republican, Independent, or Democrat. SB 1, we all know about SB 1, that's defunded our local governments, our police and fire. It's also defunded our schools even more. Community programs. I just learned that down, it's either in Clark or Floyd County, I'm not remembering right now which one, they've just canceled their tax drop program. This is going to permeate all of our communities in different ways that we still can't even anticipate. And it's really, really harmful to our communities. That means just in that community, they have more toxic waste sitting in garages, going to the local landfills, seeping into groundwater potentially in different areas, being dumped, which so often happens, and infiltrating wells. That's not good. Just an example. And at the same time, they cut business taxes, right? So they did all that while they're cutting programs, they're cutting health care. They cut back on child care and pre-K. And let me just mention, this is powerful to share in your conversations. The State Chamber of Commerce, so representing businesses across the state, employers across the state, one of their top issues, and in fact the only issue that their CEO came to the State House to testify on, was child care. Why? Because employers realize the folks in the community they want to employ aren't able to work because they can't afford child care. Democrats are fighting hard to make sure all Hoosier families have access to affordable child care. And of course, they continue to cut our public schools. But at the same time, in this same budget, where they cut local governments and gave tax cuts to businesses, more tax cuts, let's be clear, more tax cuts in an already very low business tax state, they found $200 million new dollars to send the very wealthiest Hoosier families to their elite private schools on the public dime, to subsidize just the wealthiest families' private school tuition. That's not Hoosier values. Who supports that? Do your neighbors support that? Anyone in your community? No, especially in rural Indiana where they don't even have those options. And keep in mind, they do this under the name of choice. And the reality is that $7,000 subsidy still won't allow most families to go to the private school that costs $9,000, $10,000, $15,000. It's not a choice for most working families. So that is a lie. Choice is a lie. Our public schools are providing the best education they can in all of our communities, and we have to support them. We have to support them. That's what Democrats are fighting for. So they're not, Republicans are not fiscally responsible. They've been in charge for so long. They talk to each other in an echo chamber. They advance ideas of the State House that we see everyone in the building frustrated with because they put forward bills that haven't been thoroughly vetted, that don't make sense to stakeholders, that the hospitals and whoever else in the healthcare system are like, what does this mean? How will this impact us? We don't even know because it doesn't make sense. That's how bad it's gotten. They're sloppy. So how do we fight back? We flip seats. We support organizations like Rural Summit, right? And I just want to, a special thanks and shout out looking forward to Michelle. Where's Michelle? Michelle Higgs, who ran a great campaign and is going to run another great campaign. He brings this incredible organizational leadership and grassroots organizing leadership to this effort and really founded this, right? I mean, yeah, so thank you, Michelle. We're so proud of you. Yes. And then also, yeah. And also, I know that Michael Potter and Sarah Blessing have also announced they're running again. Mike, did I have that right? Woohoo! these are just three of the great candidates that we're going to see as part of this effort that look like their communities, have great stories to share, great experiences to share, know how to relate with voters, are personable, are engaged, and will work hard, have already proven they will work very hard and smart and work to raise the money needed to get these races across the finish line. And that when I'm talking about great candidates, just a reminder, Trish ran an incredible, groundbreaking race in one of the toughest districts. And it set a high bar, and we all thank you for that. I'm going to just take a moment to talk a little bit in detail about gerrymandering, just from the perspective of Republicans and recent history. So I am tired of hearing Republicans go on TV or on podcasts, wherever online, and say, well, Democrats are the worst redistrictors. They're the worst gerrymanders. Friends, please understand this is not at all true. It is true that when political parties are allowed to draw maps, they gerrymander. That is true. All right, that's true. You're going to do what you can. Some states, some parties more so than others, but in general, that's going to be true, right? Political parties should not draw the maps. And we have been fighting year after year. House Democrats have been fighting to end gerrymandering in Indiana, to bring in nonpartisan redistricting, okay? So that's important background. Also, this is really important for at least you as civic leaders on these issues to understand so that you can share as makes sense with folks you talk to. Back leading up to the 2010 elections across the country, Republicans nationally got really organized and said, we are going to strategically support races across the country so that we can control state houses and draw the maps in those state houses. And they were very successful. They poured millions of dollars into this very coordinated campaign across the country. And then in 2011, with that new census information, they redistricted in more states because they gained control. They had, for the first time, really sophisticated computer technology and really strategic data from voters to draw these maps with surgical precision, to gerrymander in a way that in some places doesn't look so gerrymandered, but they knew what they were getting and they knew they were going to win those races. And they packed and cracked districts across the country. And what that meant is, for the next 10 years, they had drawn 191 seats across the country, okay? Those are congressional seats. Democrats, 75. So keep that in mind. Republicans are winning on gerrymandering today. They have gerrymandered many more states than Democrats have. So when you hear, well, what about Massachusetts? Don't listen to that and push back and say Republicans have been strategic and are gerrymandering in many more states already. Also, we know that Indiana's map is already gerrymandered. Matt and I fought very hard against both the congressional and state house maps back when they were redrawn in 21, of course to no avail. But we fought back because they were clearly highly gerrymandered already, but yet they want to steal more seats in Indiana. So, a couple more notes about what's been going on at the State House, and then I'll wrap it up. I didn't talk yet about utility rates. Matt and I also serve, we work together a lot. We serve on the utility committee together, and Matt's really an expert in this area. Their policies year after year are what have led us to these skyrocketing rates all over the state. That's right. Again and again. They make these mind-boggling decisions to make it harder to build renewables, as renewables have become the cheapest source of energy and battery technologies come along to make it reliable across the grid, while giving out big handouts and tax cuts to the dirtiest energy, coal and other fossil fuels, and this year, huge giveaways to nuclear at the expense of ratepayers. And I'll say I'm not necessarily opposed to nuclear, but the idea that our ratepayers would be on the hook for experimental technology to the tune of maybe hundreds of millions of dollars, even if the facility never opens, that makes no sense. Private sector has to bear that burden, not us, not Hoosier ratepayers. I mentioned healthcare earlier. To put a fine point on it, we know, you all know, this is hitting rural Indiana the worst. Taking away women's healthcare access has led to closure of more women's healthcare operations across the state. We've seen 5 maternity wards closed in the last 5 years. That's going to continue to increase. And with the big bad bill at the federal level, it's just going to get so much worse. Why? In part because Indiana is the third most reliant state on federal dollars in the nation. And we're going to be hit the worst by this. So, all they know how to do is cut taxes. They want to, their idea, I think they might float for fixing the utility rate problem is to cut the utility tax. So that means our local governments get even less money, and utilities still are off the hook, right? They still get to charge out the wazoo and have massive profits for their out-of-state investors. They don't want to hold them accountable. They've shown that. All right, so just my final point I want to make here. You guys are already doing this really well, but I think it's important to say it out loud and to think about this stuff really strategically on a regular basis. And that's about how we recruit candidates. We need folks that look like their districts. We need folks that are civically engaged, that are personable and relatable, that are leaders, that are willing to raise money and knock on doors and work really hard. I want to share a story. We have 5 incumbents in our caucus in the House Democrats who win re-election in Trump districts. And so just in 2024, these 5 members won despite Trump winning those within their district. One is Tanya Path. She's from Terre Haute. She taught high school math, just finished, just retired this spring, for the past 20 plus years. She also served in the military, raised her family in the city, and has a deep community footprint in Terre Haute. She wins because she knows her district, she talks with her district, she represents them as best as anyone could represent a district. That's the kind of folks we have to find to run. It's hard. There are lots of good people that want to run. We have to find the very best possible candidate to win these races, and especially where it's tough districts, right? And we need to stay away from the partisan clickbait and really talk to Hoosiers on the issues that they all can get behind, like utility rates and public schools, right? And we can still do that and fight like hell for our democracy. I think we can. I think we have to. I know we have to, right? Again and again, we see Indiana at the bottom rankings for quality of life, for health care, for opportunities for all Hoosiers, and it's time to change the story. I want to share an anecdote, and then I'll wrap it up. I had 12 minutes. I think I'm doing all right. Am I doing all right? I've talked about childcare a little bit, and this is an issue that's near and dear to my heart. They cut our already limited childcare, even understanding this is a real crisis for families across the state, without blinking an eye. We hear in whispered conversations, they just believe women should be home with their babies. Right? This is true. As if all families have that luxury, right? Could it be any more out of touch with the Hoosier family than that? It's a luxury. It's a luxury. And most families don't have that luxury. Most families need 2 incomes just to get by, right? And we need to make sure they have that opportunity so that they and their kids can thrive, so that maybe they can afford after-school activities and a vacation once a year. But that's not where where we are today with too many of our Hoosier families. Republicans won't invest in our families. They just won't do it. They've made that very clear. But here's the other thing. Hoosiers, at this moment, we just really have this incredible opportunity. Hoosiers, it doesn't feel good, the idea of stealing elections, right? That doesn't feel good to most Hoosiers. I'd say the vast majority of Hoosiers. And a governor who bows to the president's every whim. That doesn't feel right. Even if he voted for our current president, I think that probably doesn't feel right to a lot of those voters. That's where we can connect and find common ground and start to have these real conversations. So I just want to say thank you again. I am so thrilled to be here to support the Rural Summit today, and thank you for your work, and thank you for giving me the opportunity and Derek to go have dinner with our boys tonight while doing it. Friends, let's work like hell and flip a bunch of seats in 2016. And you know what, I just realized, I've been looking at it this whole time, I want to do a special shout out to Amy Oliver. We're thrilled to have her running to flip the seat that Dave Hall currently holds. She's going to be an incredible state representative. Thank you.
Thank you very much. As Michelle begins our second video here, one thing to really keep in mind about gerrymandering is the one thing that beats gerrymandering every time is people voting for our candidate. So they are drawing a map hoping that we have the lowest turnout in the country, because that's the data that they base those maps on, the lowest turnout in the country. If we break that and have the highest turnout in the country, they can write every damn map they want. We're going to win. So get out and vote, and you'll beat gerrymandering every time.
You shouldn't measure the strength and the health of a political party by going to places where it's easy to be a Democrat. I think you should measure the health and the strength of a political party by going to places where it's hard. And it's hard to be a Democrat in places like this. You go everywhere and you talk to everyone. It does not matter how they have voted in the past. It does not matter if they will vote for you in this election. You go and you show respect and you talk to people. You talk to people in cities, in suburbs, in rural areas, everywhere. You talk to them. And I think that for so long, over the last few cycles, we've forgotten to talk to people in politics. Not only have we forgotten to talk to people, we forgot to listen to people. And I think that we got to get back to basics, and I think projects like this help us do that. So Michelle and Thomas and everybody, thank you for building this, and thank you for what you're building. And lastly, I want to say that we will be making a donation to the Rural Summit project. On behalf of the Indiana Democratic Party, I wanted to get that out early so I can get more applause. Yeah, we gotta work the crowd, you know. But in all seriousness, we are thrilled in what you're doing.
So here is the founder of the feast. A great activist, a great candidate, a great Democrat, somebody who has probably helped everybody in this room. I know she's helped me a lot. Michelle Higgs.
I shared that clip from last year because that represented the very last stop on our band tour. That was in my hometown of Martinsville. And to our knowledge, that was the first time any chair of the Democratic Party had gone into Morgan County. It was incredibly meaningful to the people who were there. And I also wanted to share it because I want to get away from any perception that the Indiana Rural Summit is competing with the party. We are complementing the party. So exactly what Ross was talking about, where the state party has to look at protecting races and looking at those, what we call a tier 1 district, right? That is what their job is. But what's happened, and what has actually happened probably at a national level, is that just like Indiana kind of got left behind out of being a competitive state, we have then done the same thing. And so we didn't get to this moment politically in one election cycle or even 2 or 3. It has been a kind of a systemic freefall of investment in places that didn't seem like they would be competitive. But the problem is those very same places are the ones that the corporations have preyed upon. And so it's become an extractive economy and an exploitative location. And we see that now. I talk to people a lot about You know, we know in farming, like you plant seeds and you don't know, weeds can come up and you gotta clear those out. But we're at a point now where the seeds that were planted were bad. Like there's bad seeds and they're coming to fruition. But here's the thing, those seeds, many of them were planted before most of us were born. And they're coming up now. And so we are in this moment where I really believe Rule is a pathway forward because the conversations that rural and small town communities are having, the impact of bad policy that is harming them is universal. And so that's kind of what why I want to share that clip. Let me once again say, my name is Michelle Higgs. I ran in House District 60 last year. I'm running again. That is parts of Monroe, Morgan, and Johnson counties. The beautiful thing about gerrymandering, if I can say that, is that my House district strategically sits on across 3 counties, but also 3 congressional districts. So now, when I think about from an organizing perspective, I'm like, oh, that gives me authority to pull resources from 3 congressional districts. That gives me authority to support in 3 major areas. I can pull things together, I can weave things, I can create, my daughter's gonna laugh at it, I can create the mycelium network. That's my goal, right? And so the reality is that real harm is happening from policies. When we talk about tax cuts and property tax cuts, well, my friend Brandy Garland, like we only just got to know each other a few months ago because she posted on Facebook that her community was being hit with a township tax levy of 540% increase. So what happens when you're on a fixed income and your mortgage goes up? What happens? And like Carey says, so many things, it's like, I feel like where the federal has kind of scapegoated the state has absolutely abdicated its responsibility and scapegoated the local hard. And this is a moment where you can actually have the conversations in these communities because they're seeing a disconnect. And the partisan rhetoric and the propaganda and all of that in social media that gets us divided keeps the distraction here. While it's almost like a shell game and while other bad things are happening here and we're not actually talking about that. Another example, I was at a meeting on Tuesday, I think it was, with some early childhood development groups. There is a daycare group in Morgan County. Their letter said that they have to cut $260,000 in 90 days. That represents workers, that represents families, that represents businesses who will lose employees. I feel like what has happened in our hyper-individualistic world that the Republicans are so proud about is that they forget how connected and interconnected we are. So when harm comes over here, it will trickle down. I don't know what they talked about, trickle-down economics, but trickle-down harm is real. And so we need to hear those stories, we need to amplify those stories. And here's the problem, if there's nobody running in those areas, we don't know them. And there's an example that I want to give that happened in the last legislative session. One of our members, John Bartlett, he is up in Muncie area, yeah, up north. He basically was holding the fire for the northern region because we weren't quite ready to expand there. So he's like, can I be on the calls? Can I be networked in? And then next year we'll just make a go of it. And we're like, yes, thank God. Thank God, because he knew ahead of time about the union school being closed. He sent message to us and said, hey, I've got receipts. The community is not for this. What you are hearing is not true. We sent that across our network of groups and amplified it. The reality is they still had the power at the State House to do what they did, but it didn't get done in the dark. And that is what is powerful about the Indiana Rules Summit. The things that are surfacing, the things that people are saying, we're able to amplify that and say, no, this is wrong. One of the last things that is deeply, deeply concerning to me, and again, touching upon utilities, is the data centers. And again, my district has a data center fight. And for them, they definitely feel like it's already a foregone conclusion. And that speaks to something that is deeply wounded in Indiana, which is, as soon as somebody says it's a done thing, there's nothing we can do. There's this hopelessness and a helplessness that sets in. And the truth of the matter is, I could take 500 people to the State House. I could do a rally on the square every single day. We could protest till we're, exhausted. And it will not change anything unless we get more Democrats elected that can actually fight back legislatively with better policy. So when Carey talks about looking for quality candidates, it is very, very real because you have to take this seriously. It is not easy going into these districts. It is not easy knocking on doors and you don't know who's on the other side. But I can assure you, every time I've gone into a space and I have felt like, oh my gosh, and I have my team with me and they're like, we got you, they do have me. They do have me. We go into these places, we have amazing conversations, and we come out and we've built a little bit more power. And I have people now supporting my campaign that are Republicans, that are independents, that are libertarians, because I've sat in the room and I've listened, and then when they said, hey, we need help with something, I'm calling people, I'm connecting them, I'm trying to figure out something in the background. Because to be honest, for many of them, it is not safe to go, hey, I've got a friend who's a Democrat right now. But the truth of the matter is they know I've got their back. And so we are building this coalition across the aisles because they are seeing that who they have as representatives don't care for them at all. They're not caring about them. And so we have to show up. And one of the visions that I have, and we did it a little bit last year, was I knew that District 62, which is Amy Oliver's district, last year it was Thomas Horrocks, we partnered together, and part of the goal with that round was, can we get our names in the media? That's a lot of it, just can we keep getting the name in the media? And we did that. This time around, though, we're actually brainstorming going, if we had all of the Donut County, or all the counties around, that Donut County, around Monroe County, if we had representation in all of those places, then we're like this cohort that is partnering with a flippable district. I come from a world where I was in publishing for a while. And the company I work for, it published Stephen King and also the NIV Bible. So broad spectrum. But when an author made #1, I was celebrating. I did not write that book. I did not edit that book. I probably didn't even sell the book to anybody, but that was my book. That's my book. So when I'm telling you that Amy Oliver, she's my candidate. We're gonna win this, right? And then Amy's like, yeah, Michelle, we're gonna go in and on that Lake Lemon that we share, Ashley and I talk about it, we call it high five and hugs. Where we partner, we're gonna get our groups together. If you know each other a little bit, just high five. But if you really know each other, give each other a hug. We're gonna partner together and canvas, get the word out, do things together, do community. This is kind of a model of what we want to see. Small groups of people coming together over food, over conversation, being human again. And so I just want to thank you, thank you, thank you. The people in this room, donors, electeds, candidates, volunteers, spouses. This is what makes things work. Now let's make this 500 times more. Thank you.
As I said before, we're so happy to have Representative Matt Pierce from right here in Bloomington joining us here. And he's going to lead a panel of three of my friends who were candidates in the Rural Summit last go-around. So he has been in the House since 2002. Wow. He is assistant floor leader of the party from here, District 61. Gave a great speech at the State House. If any of you saw it when Pete Buttigieg was there, gave a rousing speech to the big crowd there. A great Democrat, a great leader. So please welcome Representative Matt Pierce.
Yes, I had the unenviable task of going immediately after Pete Buttigieg. I was actually amazed that anybody stayed in their seats. I figured there'd be a stream of people leaving and there'd be like 3 people left, but they hung in there. That was awesome. Okay, so we're going to just take about 15 minutes to have a brief panel discussion so we can hear from some of our Rural Summit candidates from the last election and get a sense for the highs and lows, the challenges, the triumphs that occurred there. So if I could ask for Sarah Blessing to come up. She's with Project Next and is a former and current candidate for HD 70. Teresa Kendall is Secretary for Congressional District 8 and a former candidate for HD 63. And Michael Potter is former and current candidate for HD 47, aka the Dutch District. And so we just wanted to take a few minutes to learn a little bit about what it's like to be a Democratic candidate out there in those tough rural districts. And I think we'll start with the challenging side, and then we'll move to the more positive side. So I was wondering if each of you could just tell us about, maybe a particular event, an experience, something where you said like, wow, this is even harder than I thought it'd be. So something that's like, man, I've got a huge challenge here. So just something that's like, or maybe you might even say like, geez, do I really want to be doing this? So I'd be interested to hear, that really kind of hard side of being a candidate. And I guess we'll start here with Sarah and work our way down.
Well, I got on the ballot really late. I'm a leader of the Harrison County Democrats, and I kept trying to find somebody to run for State House in my very gerrymandered district that we really didn't have much of a chance to win, and I just couldn't find anybody. And so finally I was like, that's it, I'm doing it. And I barely got on in time, and it was in July. And I finally did the paperwork and all of that, which was very stressful. And then I was just like, what do I do now? I ran for county council before in 22, so I knew a little bit about county, but I really didn't know about state house, state stuff. And thankfully, Kent, where are you? Right there. Kent Yeager is a part of Harrison County Dem, he's our treasurer. He connected me with Michelle, and she called me, and we talked. And she's like, would you like to be a part of this group that can help? And I was like, yes, I have no idea what I'm doing. And she immediately kind of helped me focus big issues. I didn't know about the energy thing. She helped me with that. And she helped connect me to other State House candidates. And then I had events to go to because of Indiana Rural Summit. So it started out so scary and intimidating, and it was like a warm hug. So that's a scary thing where Indiana Rural Summit helps.
Some of the challenges are the things that, getting started with this. I fortunately had a little easier pathway. My late husband was a former state senator a long time ago, Kendall, and I when I married my husband, I gained Trish and her husband Russ as good friends, and so I had a great deal of help. I ran in 2022 and 24. I was the county chair of the Du Bois County Democrat Party, and like Sarah said, when you can't find a candidate, you jump in. And it was in Du Bois County. I was in the belly of the beast. Yeah. Any of us have a difficult time in Indiana in these current circumstances. One of the things I really, I've teased Evan by about this. In 22, I was at French Lick, and I went up to Evan and said, hey, Evan, you might not remember, but you and I were neighbors. We were neighbors in Indianapolis. And there was one day when I was working at the Indiana Repertory Theater, I had to take a late lunch about 2 o'clock. And if any of you are familiar with Indianapolis at that time, the Claypool Courts, what it was, there were shops there and restaurants. And so I go there and I'm in this food court, and there's like one table that just doesn't have crap all over it, and I'm eating something. And this big tall guy comes over and says, and goes, hey, is it okay if I sit here? I looked up and I thought, oh, that's Evan Bott. And he was the Secretary of State at the time, so this was a long time ago. So we sat there and we talked. We found out that we lived about 2 blocks apart, and we talked quite a bit. And then I just ran into him a couple of times. I kind of got acquainted with him a little bit. And so in 22, he's at French Lick, and he's at the 9th District dinner. And I introduced him. I said, hey, were you neighbors? We talked that one day. Yeah, we talked, and his son was there. And Evan comes up and he says, oh, you got to come up here. This lady is the chairperson of the Du Bois County Democrats. I tell you, if you're going to win Indiana, you got to go through Du Bois County. And I just wanted to look at him and say, oh my God, I wish I could tell you. So so he knows now. Obviously, he's not, but it was a reminder of what it used to be like in Southern Indiana. Southern Indiana, particularly Du Bois County, was a powerhouse of the Democrat Party back in the day. And the challenges that we all have had, I think, is, getting on the ballot, getting all the stuff that you need to get done, and finances. There's a whole slew of things. But one of the things that I found out is that Republicans have the same problem. They have the same problems that we do. Now, they have people that will step up and help them, and they have a machine. Jennifer McCormick talks about, the Republicans come in and they say, this is what you're going to do. Here's the money you're going to have. Here's where you're going to go. This guy's going to come pick you up, and that one's going to take you home. We don't have that. But Republicans have the same similar problems that we do. The only advantage they have is that the straight ticket voting. But I can tell you, we have problems, there's issues, but I don't think it's anything that we can get past. And I think we did well considering what we were all up against.
All right, thank you. Michael Potter, House District 47. Is this where we ask for money?
You can always ask for money in politics, anytime, any place.
No, I tell you one thing, we need to keep the pressure off of our county leadership, and they keep having to step up and take these positions. So if anything, get involved and offer to be a candidate so they can focus on the county leadership stuff. For me, the challenge was, and I'm running for a seat in the community that I grew up in and where I went to high school. So you would think people might know my name to some extent. That's not the case. I had my friends and my friend network, people I grew up with. It turns out most of them live right along the border outside of my district. And so the struggle is that you're nobody. You think, hey, I'm this guy running for the House of Representatives. Everybody should know me. Nope. You walk into a restaurant. Hey, I want to do a campaign event here. Campaign? What campaign? Oh, we have an election this year, presidential election. Oh, dude. Yikes. And then, okay, so you're a Republican, Ryan. No. I'm a Democrat. We need to ask you to leave. So it's pretty tough out there. Nobody knows your name. Nobody wants to support a Democrat. Unfortunately, we actually saw not vandalism, but like literal customer retaliation. My wife's business, and then even our town councilors telling us and telling other business owners that if you associate with that Democratic business, your business will be hurt. And so, it's pretty tough sledding out there. I welcome the challenge, especially in the community I grew up, and I know these people, and I can tell them, I know you, like we've done this and this and this together. I know these aren't your beliefs. You're only doing this because your parents raised you and they were Republicans and you're afraid to change your path. But we know each other. I know what you believe. I know your family values. You know my family values. You can get on board. It's safe. And really, if you vote for me, you don't have to become a Democrat. I'm just asking for your vote. You can stay with your party if you want to, and if you want to feel safe in the community, I suppose. But it's really tough out there. But as you'll hear on the next round, we can work through this. We can move forward together, and the Rural Summit is one way out in these rural red communities to gather strength together.
So knowing of those difficult challenges and having to really break through, when you were campaigning, do you have a memory of a particular event or something that happened where you said like, wow, I just had a breakthrough, or you know what, this makes all this really hard work worthwhile? Do you have any kind of sense for that where you had a positive experience that really maybe kept you going on the campaign trail?
So I had so many positive experiences running for State House. Even though I lost horribly, I met thousands and thousands of people in my district. I would go to Harvest Homecoming in New Albany, that's the biggest festival, or Lanesville Heritage Weekend, the biggest festival in Harrison County, and just talk to so many wonderful people. And this is the biggest takeaway, you all. We're taught, because of social media and the news, that whatever political party you are on, if you're on the other side, you're bad. So we're scared of Republicans. And when you get out there and you actually talk to people, you find out people are human beings. And most human beings are wonderful, and most human beings want the same thing. So I cannot encourage this enough to all of you guys. Start talking to your neighbors. Find out that they're wonderful, regardless of whether they vote Republican or don't vote at all. One interaction was at Harvest Homecoming last fall. I met this black woman who I went up to her to talk to her, and I started telling her about myself, and she goes, I already know about you, and she goes, and you got my vote, and I'm gonna do this, and then she starts telling me all the amazing things she's done in her community. She says she's been homeless. She says she's a former addict. She says she's gotten herself out of poverty, and now she's helping everybody that she can. And she starts naming off the organizations she's in, and I'm like, well, I didn't know you were so amazing. This is incredible. Then she smiles, and she goes, and I take my teeth out at events. She doesn't have any teeth, and she goes, because then I see people's true colors. And she goes, and I can tell you like people, you like me, you got my vote. And she's like, and I care about you. And I was like, I love that. The realness of people. So I will never forget that 3-minute interaction with that wonderful lady.
That is fantastic. At least I have my teeth still in. One of the things that we saw the video in Jasper in Du Bois County, we have those of you that are maybe familiar, they have a big German fest there. They choose the hottest time of year possible. And they don't serve German beer. So that tells you a lot about Jasper. So anyway, there's a big parade. It's a big parade.
That was on the video.
We counted our group. So this was right after French Lick, which is a big, Democrat love fest that we have, and drunk fest too. But so we have, I sent out this email like, y'all come over. It's 30 minutes, and you can park here, you can do this, and you can walk with us. So a lot of people came over. There were 2 teachers that came down from Porter County, a 5-hour drive. We had 210 people. We had a duck. We had, Jennifer, David brought her car. We had a German band. We had 210 people. And I wander around everywhere while I'm doing this. And I was chairperson of the Democrat Party in Du Bois County. I was going past some of the Republicans, and one of them was a former district chairperson, and another one was the chairperson of the Republican Party. Sorry, sometimes dyslexia of parties. They were flabbergasted. They were like, where did these people come from? And I said, they're from all over. We had United Mine Workers, we had ISDA, we had teachers from all over the place. We had people show up from absolutely, I don't know who they were. And we had a great time. We lost a couple of people. It was, one of them was almost me, but we had a great time at that parade. And the thing that was so awesome is so many people showed up. And we had a huge crowd, along with Jennifer and Terry, and a lot of people that were running. One of the things that happens, and the reason like Michelle and everybody has worked so hard to do this, is when you are in rural Indiana, we don't have a lot of the advantages that come from being in Bloomington or Terre Haute or Evansville or whatever. We have no newspaper. We have no media that we can count on. We have to create our own. We don't have the resources to get the message out. And a parade is a big deal. We still talk about it this time. We just had a parade this past August. And somehow I got roped in to do it again, even though I'm no longer the chair. But I was asked constantly, where were your people, Teresa? Where are they? And I said, well, don't worry, we'll be back here. We're going to do it. And the Republicans breathed a sigh of relief that we weren't there because, of course, Mike Rod was there. But we did do our job and yell at him and heckle him. But point of it is, in a rural area, we lack a lot of the resources that you have in a large area. And when we band together, as in Michelle's vision, create this rural summit, as her thing says, that, together we are one, together we make one powerful message. And that's what we have to do, because we have been deliberately left out of the game. They shut the door on us to make sure that we couldn't step up. But we have proved that we can do it. We had a lot of people show up at the parade, we had a lot of people show up at these things. My last election, I gained 7,000 more votes than I had in the previous election. So we can do this. And we can do this because, as we say, when we are with many, we are one, and that's what makes this work.
I'd have to say, could there possibly have been a better moment for me than when Michelle Higgs called and said, hey, I want to do the Indiana Rural Summit. Here's my idea. And I guess maybe leading up to that was the fact that when I signed up, how do you do this? And well, they're having a meeting in the county next door, and they're going to have the candidates there. So I'm going to go there and see what they're doing. And that's when I met Michelle for the first time. And then it was shortly after that with her talking to some other people, that she proposed the idea, and there was just I didn't have any other comment but yes. Yes, I'm in. Yes, it's a good idea. Yes, let's do this together and move forward. And so that was a tremendous moment. I didn't know what that meant or where that was coming to, but I get choked up every time I see that slideshow. We did so much together, so many conversations, and again, there's strength together outwardly, but then we have our calls on Sunday nights, so we get a lot of strength from each other inwardly to keep this going in a time when it seems a little, a little tough to get the message out in some very red counties. So, the Rural Summit's been great. Another great story was, so I have the Duck District. I have it here on my shirt. It's a little hard to see with the stars and stripes, and this shirt really confuses MAGA folks because freedom, democracy, and truth. So they see the truth and think truth social and the stars and stripes. So I get, hey, love that shirt, love that shirt. Well, so I think another Michelle thing, FDT. And so I really like it for that reason. And then when I get compliments from MAGA, it's just like, yep, thank you. But anyway, so I have the duck district, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to get this blow up duck suit. You've probably seen them where it looks like the guy's riding on top of it. And then my legs are the duck's legs. I'm going to get this duck suit, and I'm going to use that to just gain attention. And I got a shirt, and I had written on the back that asked me about the duck. And so I wore that to the county fair in Johnson County, and just had this shirt asking me about the duck. And people would, hey, well, tell me about the duck. Tell me about the duck. Now, it was probably a majority of kids under 18. And I would just come at it, it's political. And some might say, okay, so what is it? Or they just turn around and walk away. But maybe if they ask, I usually hand them out. I have little rubber duckies, and I hand those out. But I got so many questions, and was able to gain that, that platform, that I actually had to take the duck suit off to be able to leave the fair. Because it just every 2 steps was another question. Like, how am I going to get out of here? I had my 5-year-old with me, and she was just like, Dad, we gotta go. It wasn't quite that night, it was just screaming. It was late, the finger, and sugar, and all that. So yeah, that was a real fun time, and I did have some good conversations again at the county fair in Johnson County. So again, another kind of red area, and I was able to engage some good conversations. And of course, it's great to be able to interact with your community and have these conversations.
There was a person that came to me, I've never told you this, that asked me how much it would cost to get a picture with the duck. I should have said, go over there and get $100
$100 donation.
Well, thank you all for sharing your experiences on the campaign trail, for all of your hard work, and I'm sure that you will be inspiring others to get involved and have the courage to put their name on the ballot, and you'll be a tremendous resource for those who come behind you and try to turn around the situation and get the state of Indiana moving in the right direction. Thank you all very much.
And another round of applause for Representative Pierce for joining us today. Before we go any further, want to really thank the folks who organized this event today. Nancy Goswami, Mary Ann Williams, Martha Crossen, Regina Moore, couldn't be here but helped us a lot in the planning, and also our friend Trish Whitcomb. So as many of you know, Trish ran last cycle in District 69 against apparently national celebrity Jim Lucas. I find it humorous that national stories quote him as if he's a leader in his own party, which he's not. I think he's passed 2 bills in his entire time there. But Trish ran just an inspiring campaign in a really tough district, a gerrymandered district, and was a real inspiration to a lot of folks, a lot of candidates, and a lot of activists. So she has been a part of the Rural Summit, not only as a candidate, but as an organizer and a strategist. And she's going to come up and talk to you about what we're going to do in the future.
everybody. You've heard enough about me, and I want to recognize the fact that we have some future candidates in this crowd today. So please, we already know about you. No, I'm kidding. Would everybody who is going to go ahead and run in 2026, please stand up, and I'll point at you, and you can shout out your name and tell them what district you're in.
Amy Albert, I'm running in District 62.
Reese, paging Reese. Oh, shoot, okay. You snooze, you lose, Reese, sorry. Okay, anybody else? And we have some elected officials here. So if you are an elected official, would you please stand up and introduce yourself? And if you are a party officer at any level, like a deputy chair for rural engagement, please stand up so we can recognize you. And the chair is on this committee, so thank you very much. And then I also want to thank two more people. Actually, Pam Bob, who was my campaign chair. Pam, thanks for coming over from school. And she hates this, but Darian Collier, my campaign manager. Yay! Okay, so in mid-September in 2024, after I had really done a lot of campaigning and raised a lot of money, and I want to thank the people in this room who helped me in that way. Thank you very much. I knew that I was still looking at a 30% Republican advantage. And my sister had gotten very ill, and I thought, I'm just going to coast the rest of this campaign season. And then I thought about my donors, and then I thought about my volunteers, and then I thought about just the whole brother and sisterhood of the Indiana Rural Summit. And I said, I'm going on. It is these personal relationships that fuel us as candidates, you as volunteers and donors. Thank you so much, but that's what it's all about. It's about the personal relationships. And that's why I'm here with you today. My fellow candidates and I ran in districts where our opponents had huge advantages. I have the numbers if you ever want to call me. That might make you question our sanity. Why would anybody do that? But we all ran in a year when Democrats failed to field 25 candidates, and the Republicans failed to field 11 candidates. So that means that 36 incumbents ran uncontested. That does not sound like democracy to me. So the hard work that went into what we're doing here today is evidence of the hard work that the Indiana Rural Summit folks can do and do constantly, even in between campaign seasons. Let's see, it's the volunteers and the pack that we formed that allows us to do things. We can continue to do our work with value-aligned nonprofits. We are advocating for such reforms as the policies that govern utility regulations, child care, health care, environmental regulations, and the things that Hoosiers really need. We got ourselves in places where people who have passions for these issues come together. These places are not political rallies, but we go to those too. Throughout the summer of 2024 and to this day, we have created or joined over 20 of these kinds of events. These efforts are building the building blocks of outreach to people who believe that their vote doesn't count. We will continue this effort, working hard between campaign seasons to connect with people who feel that the system does not work for them. Year after year, Indiana is at the bottom for voter turnout. And that is why people feel like their vote just doesn't count, and they feel like people running for offices just don't care about them. So we are going to do what we can to change this, but we need some help. So, as you saw on your program, I'm here for the big asks. And I'm so glad you say big. So, numero uno. I have to read these. If you are active in a nonprofit that focuses on issues like utility rates, public education, environmental regulation, child care, health care, or any of these other issues, let's find a way to work together. That could mean giving one of our candidates or our volunteers an opportunity to speak at one of your meetings, or if you're going to have events where you're petitioning or demonstrating, we can help you build your crowd. Second of all, if you are a donor to out-of-state candidates who look like they have a better chance of winning than Indiana legislative candidates, please consider giving a small portion of what you would give out of state to the Indiana Rules Summit. Your donation will lift up multiple candidates who are fighting for the same policies as those out-of-state candidates, and if we elect Hoosiers who share your values, the entire state will benefit. Third, if you have a relationship with elected officials at any level, talk to them about the work of the Indiana Rules Summit, and please tell them what we're doing and see if they want to get involved and see if they'll share some of their political or financial capital with us. And finally, I have my own big ask. I'm a volunteer and I'm also a financial supporter. So today, I would like to say that I will match dollar for dollar up to $1,000 the money that we raise today. And if you forgot your checkbook, but you want to make a pledge, we've got little cards for you to do that, and I can follow up with that with you. And we have a QR code back on that table if you want to capture that QR code and make your donation. I made the big mistake of mentioning this to somebody, and I already have $50. I'm already $50 toward the good for the Indiana Rules Summit. So thank you for coming today. Your presence is a blessing to our efforts. Thanks so much.
I hope everyone here is inspired by what we heard from these candidates, from what we heard from our elected officials, from our volunteers. Listen, Donald Trump wouldn't be worrying about gerrymandering Indiana if he didn't think something was up. Something is up. This has a chance to be a landslide election. It really does. And I'm not talking about in California, I'm talking about in Indiana. Barack Obama. I worked on that campaign. They put out a call. I can't say a young lawyer, but I was a younger lawyer at the time. They put out a call, said, hey, we're looking for lawyers in Indiana to help us out with the campaign. I wasn't really involved in local politics at all at the time, and I was living in Indianapolis at the time. So I volunteered, got on a legal committee with a bunch of other lawyers and did a lot of things. They came to Indiana to win it, and they did. And the way they won it was through turnout. Turnout, so it's a two-pronged goal. You go to the places where the Democrats are, like Bloomington, like Indianapolis, like the region. You get massive turnout. That's what we've got to do. But they also went to every county in Indiana. Every county. And they canvassed in every county in Indiana. Again, what are we talking about? Reverse coattails, right? You're going and you're raising your margin. 7,000 votes in Du Bois County? Are you kidding me, Teresa? That is awesome. That's 7,000 votes for her. That's also 7,000 votes for our upstate ballots. If you can take that and multiply it by every district, Barack Obama, 2008. It's not a fantasy. It's not pie in the sky. It's not bullshit. All right? It is real. But you all are activists. You are all folks who care. We're candidates. We're party officials. We're people that care about politics, care about democracy. As many of our folks have said, as Michael said, that's not true of everybody. What President Obama's campaign did was to go out and talk to those people, look them in the eye, and say, listen, you tired of George Bush? You tired of this war? You tired of the housing market going to hell? Well, here's an option for you. Maybe you're tired of a fascist government. We are at such a point where, look, the activists among us, we know that the house is on fire. What we've got to do is go to every district, door to door, look those people in the eye and say, I'm not with this. Your neighbors are not with this. Your community is not with this. And guess what? A lot of those people who don't pay a lot of attention will start paying attention. And when they come out and vote, we can win in Indiana. So thank you so much to all of the candidates who have stepped up. Thank you so much to those of you who are volunteering and helping, those who are spreading the word, and certainly those who are helping financially. This is strategic. This is smart. We've got a great bunch of candidates. And let me tell you, when you help the Rural Summit, you are helping across the board to defend democracy and turn Indiana blue. And that is so important. As my friend Destiny Wells used to say, we are not a red state. We are a purple state with a turnout problem, the lowest turnout in the United States. We can change that. It's hard. We can change that by going out door to door, knocking on those doors, making those calls, writing those checks, doing the hard work, and letting people know that there is an option in this country that is not fascism. So thank you again so much. Please enjoy what we have here. Yeah. You sure can.
I'm sorry to hijack this, but I have to bring this up. Mike Braun is planning to build a new terrain highway through Du Bois County and Martin County. It's going to take 1,800 acres of farmland, historic farms that are 200 to 300 years old. He's going to wipe it out. He's doing this through a private public agency, Regional Development Authority. They intend to build this road. He has already told Donald Trump, who's threatening him with cutting off funding for that road if he doesn't do the redistricting. And they are going to do this same thing with data centers. And they plan to do this in rural Indiana. And I represent an organization of about 800 people, Democrat, Libertarian, Republican, androids or, Star Wars warriors, I don't know what they are. It's like everything you can think of. I am helping Republicans get their name on the ballot so they can bump out the incumbents. And if we bump out the incumbents, the Democrats are going to win. We all need to stand up to this in rural Indiana. I got $50. I know you men all have money in your pockets. Let's get it out right now, and let's donate to the Rural Summit because we need to boost up our candidates. It's not just in Du Bois County. It's not just in Martin County. Martin County doesn't even have a Democrat or a Republican party. They don't have an organized party there. They can't form one. We need to step into places like this and fill the void. Get your money out now. Let's do it. Let's make sure we're going to make Trish pay that $1,000. Get your money out now and come around and get it.
Hey everyone. Most of you guys know me. Thank you for coming today. And I'm going to raise Trish's $1,000 and I'll give another $1,000 to match. So if you guys put in, whatever you guys put in, I'll match it up to $1,000 too. So that's how much.
I want 1 minute.
Data
center.
Absolutely.
I have taken a Zoom and studied data centers, and 6 counties have banded together and gotten rid of the data centers that are coming to their community. There's 40 more on the docket. So the thing is, sometimes communities don't find out about these data centers because they come in under the guise of other names. And they get maybe 2 weeks notice. So I suggest that your counties have a rapid response committee that is ready to fight this, to keep these out because they're so devastating to our environment. 40 are on the docket. So we don't know where they're headed, but we know that if we band together and make a voice, we can make a difference. So
Thank you. Absolutely. Look, there are issues that affect everyone in this state. We are being run by clowns and idiots from top to bottom. A super majority that doesn't give a damn. We've got to break that. We can break that by being smart, running good candidates, and really working hard. So again, thank you all for coming. Please enjoy some of our fine refreshments and mingle today. And help us out. We'll see you all next year.